Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavai, Tejasvinavaditam Astuma Vishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil or argue with each other. And peace, peace, and peace beyond all. And although we have selected a topic of Bhagavatam, some lessons from this, and I'll talk about that, there's some practical questions also before us. And after every peace invocation that begins every kind of work, we find this Shanti repeated 3 times. And so in a world that seems to be full of turmoil, we require it. But also on the domestic front, domestic including work environment, family environment. These are important things because these are things that surround us and create potentialities for reactions. How we react is a very important thing. And our reaction will come primarily from a carefully cultivated habit level. Now, it doesn't seem as if it's cultivated because it comes out so spontaneously. We didn't think it was carefully cultivated, and yet it is. What's the mistake? The mistake is that we think that this world is solid, and it's not. So there's nothing that's solid that exists. There are only fast-moving waves appearing as solid. That has to be a fundamental conviction in our Vedanta teachings. Over and over again, we can repeat this. These tanmatras or subtle waves, these are all here and they appear as solid. Now, what do we mean by solid? Well, I think you know what we mean, but people think solid means a table, a chair. No, solid also means the unorganic body, the solid situation that we relate to. So we have to understand that even the body is created out of spiritual substance. It's not made out of dust, as we popularly think it is. There are cosmic energies that go toward manifesting as what is here. They'll only work for a person who is humble. And where that humility comes from is to see that these waves are subtle waves, but they are divine waves. When you act, nature reacts. And when you put all thoughts about everything at the habit level, you can move the whole universe. That has to be our unwavering conviction that if we find ourselves in a situation of difficulty, we also know we can change it. And thought changes it. Nature reacts to it. So what we call divine creative energy requires us as human beings, in order to express this energy, like electricity through a light bulb is the usual example I give. But the ego must be removed and the individual must be willing. So what does that mean? Now I'm going to tie it in with the Bhagavatam a little bit and see if we can solve some of these practical issues. After the Upanishads, which we take as Vedanta, and the Bhagavad Gita, and don't forget, third in the Prasthanatraya would be the Brahma Sutras. What we call Srimad Bhagavatam is the most authoritative of, let us call it, the Indian scriptures. Why do we follow Indian scriptures? Why not follow classical Greek scriptures? Why not follow Judaistic scriptures, Christian scriptures? Well, we follow them, yes. But our standard has to be, they have to conform to some universally accepted understanding of truth. And when we talk, for example, when Christians talk about gospel good news, there are 2 interpretations of it. The original interpretation was, and that is going back to Paul, St. Paul, is that it is a message of truth available to everybody, even beyond a small group, Jewish people. We have exactly the same thing in Vedanta. So the good news about Vedanta is it's a solid fundamental teaching that is available to everybody, irrespective of caste, creed, whether you're tall, whether you're short, whether you're fat, whether you're thin, whoever, whatever it is, whatever your belief system is or cultural background, there's a universal message for everybody. And this is contained in that part of the Vedas, which is called Vedanta, that is the Upanishads. The Bhagavad Gita is a great summary about it, but even better, in a way, more descriptive, is the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam attributed to Vyasa. The Bhagavad Gita also attributed to Vyasa. And the Brahma Sutras, the organization of the Vedantic ideas, also attributed to Vyasa. So you see how busy Vyasa was. And why is this Bhagavatam so interesting and intriguing is because it includes stories, lives of incarnations, avatars, sages, devotees, kings, royalty. It popularizes the truths which are contained in the Vedas. And by Vedas, we are talking of Upanishads. So, most vast majority of Hindus will find that in this text will be their most cherished expressions of religious faith and their dearest exemplars in story form. One story that you'll find is the story, a teaching of the Avadutta. Avadutta, somebody who is a saintly person with no external marks about it. Because external marks are normally marks of egoism. And so, in a sense, Ramakrishna was an Avadutta because there was no external mark he had. Although he was a Brahmana, he was a priest and so on, he dressed like everybody else, to the extent that a devotee coming to hearing about his reputation is looking for Ramakrishna, and somebody is in the garden, he assumes it's the gardener, asks, where is that person? He points out the room. Well, he finds out, oh, that's Ramakrishna, actually. Holy Mother goes to South India, accompanied by her women devotees. And who is the Holy Mother? Oh, it's that woman there. Nobody recognizes her. And yet the holiest of the holy. By the way, Swami Purnananda, as you know, composed a hymn to Holy Mother that we often sing, we always sing actually, at the Archie on Sunday evenings, Prakritim. And when Swami Purnananda presented this to Holy Mother, she said, why would you write a hymn about me? And anyway, she conceded, yes, let me hear it. And when it came to this synthesis of the Holy Mother with Ramakrishna, you could see she was lost in trance. And this identification of Ramakrishna with Holy Mother is something that the original apostles of Ramakrishna picked up on, understood, that these are two sides of the same coin. The one side is the knowledge, the other side is the practical application of it in terms of daily life, including dealing with relatives, including doing repetitive things at the workplace. The workplace means washing the dishes, cooking the food, even clearing up the devotees' plates. Much to their protest. You're our guru, you're our mother, we can't allow you to do that. No. I'm doing it because I'm your mother, that kind of approach. So, the peculiar excellence of this Bhagavatam is that it reconciles heart with head. That's important. For example, if you consider in spiritual practice repetition of a mantra called japa it is, to a large extent, I have to qualify my terms, to a large extent ineffective unless there is a heart that goes with it. The feeling has to go with it. And normally the mantra will start off with Om because it's a foundational sound. The rest of the mantra will be the varied expression suitable for you that is the sound embodiment of your chosen ideal. And if you have a chosen ideal, surely it moves the heart. Surely your affection is moved by it. Now, a mantra is a protecting thought. So if you have any difficulty in your life, the repetition of the mantra with feeling, not just the head, but with feeling, will protect you. And not just in the situation, in situ. It will protect you ahead of the situation. It'll be a precursor to it. It'll be a preparatory move toward it. It'll be a mind conditioning process. It will be filling the psyche with divine purity, nobility, love, all the highest qualities embodied by your chosen ideal. And so all of these teachers will emphasize the repetition of a mantra. In answer to a question, how do I deal with people in the family environment who may be awkward or may be taking my mind away from spirituality? Our interpretation is wrong. Nobody or nothing can take you away from the deep connection or the attention that is attuned to the divine. It's not to do with the external thing. It's to do with your internal approach. If you have a castle, let's say in medieval times, it's no good just suddenly manning the castle or building the castle when you're under attack. No, you build it, and it is there for posterity to prevent attacks, to use in the event of attacks. So all these great castles with huge, thick walls and so on. For example, in Constantinople, as it was, the walls of the city were so impenetrable, it took huge cannons eventually to blast a hole through the walls. And so why did it stand for thousands and thousands, or at least 1,000 years or more? It's because it was built in the first place as a protection. So the mantra and spiritual practice is used in this same way. This connection to the divine is your protector. So take it like that. Now, in terms of the Bhagavatam, the reconciliation of heart and head, devotion and learning, Krishna describes as it is fried in the butter of knowledge. That's what Sri Krishna says. And the latest of Indian prophets, as we take it, would say it, and steeped in the honey of love. These two things. So only the more generally interesting portions of this work is worth paying attention to. Of course, it's a vast body of work, but it includes biographical information about Krishna and so on and so forth. But the main key interest that we focus on really is the 11th book, or the 11th chapter. We can't say chapter because within the book there are chapters. And that's what I propose to highlight. Now, if you really want to see the substantial presence of the divine everywhere, Krishna has a very interesting way of doing it. What he says is that if we ignore the derision of friends and embarrassment that go along with it, and embarrassment to the intention of, or to bodies, your body has an ego, other people's bodies, then what should you do? And I'd like you to take careful note of it. It sounds very extreme. But when you see it properly, well, maybe not. Supposing you do this, great humility will come to you, but also the understanding, the basis of doing it would be the understanding of this oneness in everyone, in all beings. Don't forget, the manifested glory of the divine is there in what we call a human that has an individual purpose and the capacity to transform this God into harmony. It's our responsibility to do it. It's nothing to do with external people or places or events. So what should one do? Well, you should fully prostrate. Now, what does that mean? It means, when we go to the shrine, we go down on knees, we touch the head to the floor, that's the normal way. In Catholic churches, you'll do it with one knee and a bowed head. But if you're a Muslim, then you'll adopt a prostration position with folded knees. But full prostration actually means the full body is in touch with the floor. And many devotees will do that, thinking that you cannot get lower than the ground, and thinking that you're submitting to the holy feet of the divine. That's one of the things that you can do. So one should fully prostrate on the ground, even before, what is it? See, Vishraya Samyamaman Ashu Chandalago Karam, before a dog, before an outcast, before a cow or a donkey. You can choose. What's the purport of it? That everything is a form of what we call Brahman, the divine. Everything. And what is the point of illustrating this in this peculiar way in this 11th book? It is because you see there's a contrast. Now, a dog is often considered, certainly in Africa and parts of Asia, as a very inferior thing. It's not like a pet in these countries. It is a wild thing that roams, a scavenging thing, normally very thin, that barks, and sometimes people take advantage of that, own such a dog, but normally goes around and eats any old scrap. That kind of thing. And then an outcast. That is beyond all the castes, the social structure, the social order of all societies. Just to remind you, the social order works well if there are dedicated people who don't require any particular reward, simply serving humanity, the purest of the type, and therefore deemed to be knowers of Brahman, and they are called Brahmins. Normally we call it priests, people who are teachers. In modern day terminology, you might say people in the health sector, doctors, nurses, theoretically teachers, and so on, as well as religious ministers, priests, and so on. So that's a kind of modern elaboration of what it means, although the modern context may not have it because nurses require wages, doctors make a practice of a business of a practice, and so on and so forth, but theoretically. But then you have to have a society that maintains law and order and protects you. And so that's the next order of things. Brahmins, after Brahmins, we find Kshatriyas, and you can say, you might say, the administrative section of the civil service. And then after that, you have the vast majority of people, the Vaishyas, involved in commerce, industry, agriculture. And then you have the unskilled laborer, Shudra. Even beyond those, you have outcasts. So the lower structure of the whole society, normally really not very well understood. Chandala. Well, before that, and then a cow is honored in India for very good reasons, because it represents the whole agricultural economy of a country. It supplies milk, it takes your goods to market, it plows your fields, is regarded therefore as a close domestic pet, if you will, that is useful to you, supplying you with nourishing milk and dairy products, making butter or ghee, and using the cow dung to smear on walls as a kind of antiseptic. All of this. So a holy cow, or a donkey that is a beast of burden, takes your goods out. These are examples. Now, ignoring the derision of friends and bypassing any potential embarrassment, you don't care about it. You just do it. Now, will you do it literally? Yes, why not? If you want to complete it to the letter. But the purport of it is, at least mentally, make a salutation, and to all beings, regardless. Not classifying them as useful people, good people, bad people, persuasive people, or people who are against you, classified as friends, classified as enemies. None of this is valid when you see that one Brahman inside and flowing through everyone. Like the electrical current flowing through the adapter, that is the light bulb and so on. You are seeing that. Practice doing that. Making a salutation. You'll learn two things. You'll learn the oneness behind everything, and secondly, you'll learn humility.
Swamiji, so in relation to that,
yeah,
when really it's the ego that gets in the way.
Yes. Indeed, of course, all our problem is the ego.
Yeah.
Swami Purnananda said, if I was to look for a devil, I'd find it in the ego.
It's like you're going along nicely and you're prostrating yourself before the divine in each individual, and then the ego really causes the blockage.
Yes. So some good examples that come to mind. Jesus gives the example of two people going to the synagogue. One person dressed up, in ritualistic garb, and going straight to the front. Oh, I'm your servant. I'm so good. I contribute to this and that and the other. You can see it today in all the churches where somebody goes into the top pew, looks around, and people say, "Oh, he always goes to that top pew. He's always in the front." And the person sitting at the back, the poor person, offering a small mite and so, and saying, "I'm not worthy. I shouldn't even have stepped in here," kind of thing. The latter would be the greatest, you see. So what is the difference? Ego is the difference. So ego, pride. Pride in what? Pride in a psychophysical entity where the original seer experiencing everything inside, the knower, the thinker, the witness, is identifying. Patanjali puts it like very, very clearly in a very short sutra, what is the ego? Because these obstacles are there, what we call kleshas. So this obstacle, the second obstacle we have, ego. That's why we do the Enneagram, because that's the primary difficulty. So somebody says something. How dare they say that to me? What are they trying to do? I have a different opinion. See how many I's took place. Some people may take a philosophical approach and say in Christianity, there's the cross. What does it symbolize? Well, it symbolizes crossing out the I, doing away with the ego. What is the result of it? A glorious, glorious revelation. So the I is the problem. Now, there are two ways of dealing with it. Of course, we've discussed one. That is to see this divine flowing through all eyes, all heads, all hands, all ears, 1,000 heads, and so on. That's one approach. The other approach will be to accept that perhaps I'm an embodied entity. Therefore, I put myself, for example, in the position of a child, the devotional aspect. And I'll see that divinity in all people, in all situations, in all places, the workplace, the domestic environment, everything. And do it as a worship, the sweetness of that. So this is the bhava, making use of different kind of temperaments, which will say, yes, I'm a child of the Lord, or in some cases, I'm the parent of the Lord. That's another bhava. Ramakrishna practiced all of these, of course. Or in some cases, some beautiful, beautiful, pristine cases, you say that I am the Lord's beloved. I am the lover. Embodied in this concept of Radha Krishna. So these are various bhavas, approaches. But the key is I see the divine in every eye that looks back at me, in every face that beams back at me, in every hand movement that is displayed before me, in every leg, in every limb, understanding that without the life principle that we call the divine, eyes don't shine and speech does not occur. And in our own individual environment, the capacity to hear, the capacity to see, all comes from that same divinity. It's not exclusive to you, by the way. Everybody, not just people, but every creature, every insect, every spider, every ant, every bee. I gave a talk on bees. So every one of these creatures has this. Now the story of the Avaduta, in what we now call the Uddhava Gita, which is that portion of the Bhagavatam, which is this 11th book. It's published separately as the last message of Krishna. And so there's the story of the Avaduta. The Avaduta has 24 gurus. What did I learn from the gurus? Now, not all of them are humans. Actually, what did I learn from the spider? What did I learn from the bee? What did I learn from space? What did I learn from earth, from water, from air, and so on? What did I learn from a prostitute? All these things are combined. And that means one great lesson of the Bhagavatam is that every single encounter, regardless of what it is, will be the opportunity of learning something. Supposing we want to find out what will we learn from a mountain or an elephant. We learn solidity, strength, serenity, peace. We can do that. What will we learn from bees? Wow, the community spirit, the work ethic. Now, when we talk about work, therefore, we have to do two things. Firstly, we have to understand there's a swadharma. There's something that you alone can do, nobody else has ever done with your combined senses of skills and talents, and nobody else will ever do in the future. That you have to take stock of. Because, as I mentioned here before this talk, to the person present here, the Lord of the universe is not a bad investor. Your nails are growing, your food is being digested, your heart is pumping, your cells are being renewed, your wonderful, wonderful digestive system is working in such a complex way, and the neurological networks cannot be duplicated by computers, even though computers can do more, but combined aspects of it, the computer cannot duplicate. Supposing you say, I'm an AI enthusiast, so let me try and construct all the wiring that I know of in the neurological network of the human brain. Nobody has ever done it. Nobody will ever do it because there are some components there which are not just data-based. So there's a wonderful, wonderful response mechanism that responds to our innermost thoughts and feelings and responds. And the response doesn't go that far. It goes to every cell of the body and it goes to the entire environment. It then mobilizes what we call nature, the subtle forces, that then concretize as your events. And you say, awkward people, or bad environment, or mundane work. It's what you created. So we have to do a few things. We have to maybe assess what is our individual purpose, assessing our level of skills and talents and abilities. We went on a workshop like that, living life on purpose, something like that. Well, that's the one aspect. But then the general aspect will be the purpose in life, central purpose in life. And if circumstances, such as bad company, is taking our attention away from our central purpose, that is called realization of God, devotional language, or vision of God, devotional language, or revelation of truth, philosophical language. There's one central purpose in life. We're all pilgrims on that journey. Anything that deviates our attention here and there is a delaying tactic. So there are many letters, let's say, that one might receive, and all trying to drag the mind away and get involved in politics, for example, or whatever it is. And we draw the line. No, absolutely not. Because it's not worth taking one's attention away from the glory of the divine. So that's where personal discipline comes in, where a voluntary action. How often should we employ it? All the time. And this is called this process of discernment, viveka. All the time we should be discerning what is useful, what is not useful, what is the real, what is unreal, what is the flow of divinity on the one hand, what is the temporal thing on the other, what is the substance on the one hand, what is the name and the form on the other. All of these things should be in automatic with us. Just like driving a car is automatic. We're using our discernment. If you watch, for example, an animal, let us say, for example, a cat will want to jump proportionately an enormous distance. And you'll watch them and you'll see them crouch and you'll see them look at the object where they're going to land, and you can almost hear the calculation going on. Measurement, spatial measurement. And the body responds to it, and all of a sudden, an enormous leap that you and I cannot do. What a wonderful thing it is. So we always have to be watchful. At any point in time, what is our reactive condition of the mind? Is it giving up? Is it going into a morbid sense of, just doing nothing? We call this tamasic, lazy mind. Or do we shift the gear upwards? Active mind, enthusiastic, motivated, doing. And if so, we have to find a reason for it. Now, if we shift the gear up further, it gives us a reason. Every activity is a worship. Every activity is using borrowed energy, divine energy, and dispersing it in a way that is useful to us and to all. That's the economy of distribution of talents and abilities. If you want to build a house, not everybody will be a plumber, not everybody will be a mason, not everybody will be an interior decorator, etc., or an electrician, and so it goes on. So it has to be one expert in each field, combined like that with the architectural plan in front. They will all contribute toward the overall construction. So see where you fit in to that. And regardless, make sure that all your activities are infused with a sense of worship, so that at the end of the day, you present your activities to the executive officer, the supplier of everything, and give an account. Evening devotion should initially consist of that. Now, there are other wonderful lessons contained in this particular section of the Bhagavatam. First of all, the self is the true teacher. The wise who have attained inner poise, who are skilled in knowledge and yoga, find the divine with all the divine attributes and powers most manifest in the human body, regardless of whether this human body is a relative or a friend or actually even an enemy, so-called enemy. So, in other words, the biblical statement, we are made in the image and likeness of God. We have to be compassionate to all beings. So I'm going to take a few extracts from this book and quote and see where we are. Uddhava asks a question to Krishna. This is the eve of Krishna's departure from the world, by the way. He says, pray tell me, what qualities in your devotees and what kinds of devotion are most pleasing to you? So that's an interesting question. My devotee is compassionate towards all beings. When we see an awkward situation or an awkward relative, for example, then we have to, first of all, we have to pick up, in terms of relatives, we have to pick up the examples of Holy Mother, read her life, and follow her example, because we find the most awkward relatives in her household that she has to deal with. She teaches us how to deal with such things in an even-minded way, but compassionate way, because they're all suffering. The nature of human beings really is that we are all suffering. There are some philosophers who go to the heart of it and say, yeah, our difficulty as humans is our suffering. When we talk about Buddha on Buddha's celebratory day, Buddha Jayanti, as some Buddhists would celebrate it. Other Buddhists will celebrate his realization. But we can see he goes to the heart of it. Here's our malady. We're all suffering. Did you notice? Physically, psychologically. When Swami Vivekananda goes to the West, he knows this as well. He notices suffering at home. He sees the terrible, terrible suffering, and it moves his heart. One of his motives for going to the West, raise funds for the upliftment of his countrymen. But then as he arrives in the West, he sees suffering of a psychological type. And we still see it. People are suffering. I always say, you see, there are no bad people, only bad behaviors. And we can't say we behave completely well ourselves. So we're all in the same boat. My devotee is compassionate towards all beings. Love your neighbor as yourself. No, this goes even further. All beings, all creatures, everything that moves. He bears enmity towards none. We are supposed to be good examples of the Vedanta philosophy. And yet we see that people get bogged down in administration or political things or rules or regulations or not even that, or arguments or whatever it is. And these are not devotees. Because Krishna says, my devotee is compassionate towards all beings. He bears enmity towards none. He is forbearing. His only strength is truth. Forbearing means we endure. We're all suffering. Endure it. Make the best of it. And his only strength is truth. Ultimate truth. Real truth. Fundamental truth. Truth meaning the underlying truth behind all things. Free from impurities of the mind. We could say impurities of the body also. He looks with an equal eye upon all beings and works for the good of all. Often Hindus, for example, will be accused of being fatalists and being selfish, spiritual pursuit, my liberation. I was speaking to one a few months ago probably, who was quite distraught and asked for a private phone call and so on, which I gave. And the last 2 years, I have been working on my liberation, spiritual life, spiritual liberation. Is it selfish? Answer, yes. Because if you see the divine in you, you'll see the divine in you and you and you everywhere, in every person. It's the basis for loving your neighbor as yourself. What is the greatest commandment? Jesus answers, Deuteronomy. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. And the second is akin to it, love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you love God, you'll love your neighbor automatically. With the same science, same sightedness in everyone. So it works for the good of all, naturally, spontaneously. And even in your job, what are you doing? Working for the good of all, because without you as a cog, for example, in the overall machinery, the whole machinery doesn't work. His heart is unsullied by desires, self-controlled, sweet-tempered, pure, free from the consciousness of ego, serene, temperate, master of the mind, having me as his refuge. Repeatedly, in Bhagavad Gita, this is told as well. Take refuge in me. If you have nowhere to go, take refuge in me. Recently, I came across a situation where a person, unbeknown to me, was internally desperate, hiding it very well, but in turmoil internally. And where do you find refuge? Relationships, in this case, possibly, alcohol, possibly sociability amongst friends, possibly in counseling, many, many avenues. But here, there's an opportunity to take refuge in one entity. And that's surely the only entity worth taking refuge in. He meditates on me steadily, says Krishna. Steadily. Not just once or twice, or when we're in trouble, but all the time, steadily. Imperturbable, tranquil, patient, having the whole nature under his control. Seeks not honor for himself, but gives honor to all. Completely enlightened himself, such a sage, that's what we should be aiming for, can convey the truth to others. Otherwise, it's just information transfer. And the listener can tell. He is friendly and merciful to all beings. There are many people doing lectures on YouTube and everywhere, and some are effective. Some have thousands of followers, millions maybe. Others, very few. What's the difference? Is it in the quality of the speech? Is it in the grammatical correct conveyance of things? Or is it in the Shakti? Is it in the energy? Is it in the sincerity and the love? Regardless of that is conveyed. He knows good from evil, and by surrendering his actions unto me, he worships me alone. Surrendering your actions. So, you're in a workplace. You've been there for some time. It's a daily routine. You're kind of tired of it. Yes, where is the energy coming from? Where is the motivation, enthusiasm coming from? Yeah, every activity, surrender. Mentally surrender it. Those who knowing my true nature, worship me steadfastly, are first among my devotees. Now, just talking about surrendering activities, I have to talk a little bit about karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Karma yoga is exactly that, surrendering all activities. That means all their results. Not owning them, because they don't belong to you. And Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm going to make an inference from it, we have no rights except one. You have the right to work. That's it. We talk today about human rights and this and that and the other. From Krishna's point of view, well, you're not tuning in to a supply of energy which is entirely yours, owned by you, paid for by you, like the electrical supply on a network, and you pay so much to use it, to make use of it. No, this is freely supplied. No one is charging you for this energy. They're giving you free food, convertible into black hair and white teeth and red corpuscles and so on, from the same thing. A free manufacturing process like that, free converting digestive thing like that. What do you call Vaishvanara? I digest the 4 kinds of food, says Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. I am doing it. No, you think you're doing it? No, I'm doing it, says Krishna. So all of this energy doesn't belong to us. Why would we have a right to own it or to think we own it? We don't. All we have to do is we have the right to express this energy, the right to work. That's all. No other right is there. So karma yoga is removing all the anxiety to do with future-orientated effects or results. We give up that future thing and be mindful on the unit activity right here, right now. I was having a discussion even this morning. I think it was this morning anyway, with a devotee. And anyway, I was talking about removing stress in a work environment. When people say I'm stressed and in the working environment, and they're expecting some spiritual kind of advice and counseling, I tell them about time management. Because time management is part of karma yoga. I come as time, says Krishna, also in the Bhagavad Gita. Imagine. And what is this time there for? And time is a consuming thing. It's an all-devouring, I come as all-devouring time. So time fortunately comes to us in units, and in these units we can put voluntarily something useful or something damaging. We have to take stock of how we are using it. And if we're using it with anxiety, we create an anxious world for ourselves. If we're continuously using time and inserting worry in it without controlling it, we will create a worrisome, difficult, rocky world for ourselves. Therefore, our whole thing rests on thought and living in the moment, and what is now popularly called mindfulness, doing all activities with a sense of attention in the unit activity, not moving on to the next thing, not being tempted to deviate from it until it's complete and finished. Having a strict system of how we use the divine time by planning, scheduling. Scheduling means when we will do the activity, and completing it to the end. Particularly in a busy world such as ours today, in the contemporary world, we have to take note of this. So, worship me in the symbols and images which remind you of me. You can do that. And also in the hearts of my devotees, where I am most manifest. Take delight in hearing and reading of my divine incarnations and so on and so forth. All these activities which assist us to orientate our attention toward the divine. Meditate on me, surrendering thyself to my service. And so it goes on. Then there is he who loves me is made pure. Without love for me, virtues and learning are unfruitful. He who loves me is made pure. His heart melts in joy. A joyful person, not a somber person. Not a person who's I am religious, and therefore I am serious with no sense of humor. Tears of joy flow from his eyes, his hair stands on end, his heart melts in love. What a beautiful description. It's a measure of the intensity of our own spiritual practice, resulting in these symptoms, that tears of joy, a rousing of higher emotional nature. Tears of joy flow from his eyes, hair stands on end. See, to the mystic, particularly in India, this phenomena associated by the Westerner only with the emotion of great fear is familiar as a physical expression of the extreme ecstasy caused by the highest spiritual emotion. We get a sense of it when we hear a piece of music or hear a story or a scene of beauty, and we feel the sensation of the hair standing on end. Then there's a question. How should we meditate? Very useful in this particular section of the Bhagavatam. And we use it when we conduct workshops on meditation or game of guiding thought. Sitting in an easy posture with the body erect, place your hands on your lap, direct your eyes toward the tip of the nose. In other words, exact replication of Swami Vivekananda's classical pose of meditation, his picture used on most shrines, and which I made a portrait of and gave it to a devotee. So the eyes, you can see, not exactly completely closed, hands on the lap, and gaze declutched. You declutch from the outside is the purport of it. Practice then the practice of regulating breathing, inhalation, retention, exhalation of the breath. Why? For the purification of the nerves. If you feel that you are disturbed mentally, it transfers to the nervous system. Anybody who's watched experiments that I make with the kinesiology, it's very easy to upset a person's neurological system. And we can test that through muscle testing and restore the balance, because the human body is a magnetic polarized system. And any stress will help you, it will make you feel unbalanced. So even if your reaction is one of disturbance, recovery is necessary. That's an important part of practically dealing with difficult situations. You take the initial reaction that you have, and then you assess it, and then you restore. I always give the example, two runners running, let's say, 100 meters, both of them completing. One collapses on the ground, gets taken to the hospital. The other one bends over a little bit, restores their breathing, recovers quickly in 1 or 2 minutes. The difference, one never trained, the other one trained. So the other one knows how to recover. Next, practice gathering in the outgoing senses and the mind with great patience and perseverance. We call this pratyahara. And patience and perseverance. Don't be in a hurry to do it. Watch the various thoughts coming and going. Allow them to settle and gather them in nicely. While practicing this pranayama, that is control of universal energy, meditate on the sacred word Om, chanted within like the continuous peal of a bell. Because when you hear this Om, it doesn't come out as the human expression Om. It's a combination of those particular vowels and the consonant at the end, with a silence, representing, as we know from the Mandukya Upanishad, these 4 states of consciousness, as it were. The 4th not being a state, but we call it like that. So, when you actually hear the Om, it is in fact like a continuous peal of a bell. You should practice this coupled with Om 10 times, 3 times daily, is very specific. If you do this, you will quickly gain control of universal energy. And there's a footnote in the text that I'm referring to. Before undertaking the practices of pranayama and meditation, one should learn the processes in detail from a competent teacher, what we call a guru. And then imagine a lotus within the heart, its petals pointing downward and running through it, the Sushumna. As you meditate, think that the petals have turned upward and that the flower is full blown. Then see at the heart of the flower, sun, moon, and fire, one within the other. Then your mind intent behold within the fire the benign form of Ishtam, chosen ideal. Meditate on him as the supreme cause, in whom the whole universe exists, and from whom the whole universe evolves. Then last of all, meditate on the oneness of the self with God, and the one blissful existence, and the one I am. I don't think anywhere else you will find such comprehensive, though brief, directions, detailed directions in terms of meditation. It goes on with the mind thus absorbed. A person sees me alone in himself and sees himself in me, the self of all, light joined to light. Beautiful description. Thus practicing meditation regularly, not just one day if I feel like it and not the next, with intense devotion, soon rises above all limitations of knowledge and action by realizing the one all-pervading reality. Now we just conclude that with one more idea from this section of the Bhagavatam. Selfish attachment to the world of plurality leaves only pain in its wake. Be dispassionate and gaining self-control, approach the knower of truth humbly and inquire into the truth that leads to me. The knower of Brahman is indeed one with me. Serve thy teacher with care and devotion. Religion is not in the garb of a monk, neither in external forms. Control of the passions, a well-balanced mind, discrimination, renunciation, these make one knower of truth. Service unto the teacher is the duty of the student. Protection of all living creatures and sacrifice unto God. These are the duties of a householder. So it goes on like that. So there's a whole wide range that is put out in this precious book. We have only touched a few ideas from this Uddhava Gita. Actually would have done better by calling the title of this the Uddhava Gita, or Last Message of Krishna is how it's published, because that is where we find these profound philosophy ideas at their very best. And we find the last words of this incarnation of Krishna. Well, I don't know if I answered your question about so-called difficult relatives or so-called difficult work situations, but hopefully I've at least touched on some solutions for you.
That was great, Swamiji. Thank you.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks.
Thank you, Swamiji.
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 Om